Shalom. There's a very famous book that was published about 15 years ago, Who Moved My Cheese? Most of us probably know or even read it, written by Spencer Johnson. It actually is a parable about modern day's life. It describes 4 mice or people who every day live in a maze, which may be similar to the world we live in, and every day go through the maze, making a right, making a left, going straight, until they reach their goal, meaning they reach the cheese, which they eat, and apparently it's very tasty. And every day they do exactly the same route, and they have a very good meal of cheese, until one day somebody moved the cheese. And the bottom line of the story is actually the difference between those who realize that the world is changing, who understand that in order to achieve the same goals, sometimes you have to find a new path. Sometimes you have to find a new track. And the others who are bitter, who are critical, who are looking to blame someone, except themselves, obviously, because the cheese is supposed to be here, and if it's not here, then he's to blame, the government is to blame, the governor is to blame, the rabbis are to blame, the teachers are to blame, the internet is to blame. Instead of saying the world is changing, let's look how we can adapt in order to achieve the same goals. Now, many people relate to this famous story as a parable which can help businessmen in the sophisticated world of business, of economics. But when I first read the book, I realized that it is also a wonderful, precise parable about the world of education. Because in education we also have goals, and in education we also follow pretty much the same track, day after day, trying to do the same things with our kids, the same things sometimes that our dad and mom did to us, we try and copy when we're raising our kids. The same things we did for our oldest, we're trying to do for our youngest. And we don't always realize that the cheese is moving, that we sometimes have to adapt, that we many times have to recheck our roots in order to make sure that we are achieving the very same goals. Because our goal of raising good, proper, Jewish, strong, educated kids, youth, teenagers, adults, needs new methods when we are trying to achieve the same old goal. It's a different world. It's not a world of teenagers. In many ways, it's a world of screen-agers. A world which is growing up with screens, a world which is growing up with Twitter and Facebook and WhatsApp and whatever it may be, is not only using technically different tools, they are tools which are radiating values. Now, I'm not against them, that's the whole point. Because many people feel that the only way, the only Jewish way to cope, is to become ultra-Orthodox, and I have nothing against them, and to try and blockade ourselves, at least it's that way in Israel here, to try and blockade ourselves as much as possible in order not to be exposed to the modern, maybe even postmodern world. So that's one way. In my eyes, it's not the modern Orthodox way. On the other side, we find people who are so emerging into this super postmodern world that sometimes they may even be assimilating. They're drowning in this pool of technology, of modern values, of postmodern society. And our modern Orthodox way, which in my eyes is the way of Torah, which in Israel we call religious Zionism, but at least on that point it is very similar, and maybe we should discuss what the differences are, because they are very interesting. Our way says that one can be a true Jew. One can obtain deep Jewish religious Torah values and live and participate and help develop the modern world. But he has to understand that the path changes. He has to understand that we have to rethink. Exactly the same way a GPS, the Navigate, the satellite system, where it takes you down the road in your car. And sometimes when something, the same road you used to go down is blockaded, it says, I know how to say it in Hebrew, we are rethinking the route, And we are suggesting a new route in order to allow you to obtain the same goals. I think that what every parent has to do today is actually to understand that he has everyday homework. Not only our schools, and many of the schools have everyday homework, our parents have, we as parents have, daily homework. To look at each kid, to try and understand the world he's living in, to try and rethink how we can raise him, believing, breathing Jewish values, Torah values, while continuing to participate in this new, wonderful world. When we rethink it, when we discuss it, learn it, when we exchange ideas, I think we will be capable of living up to the challenges of the new world that Baruch Hashem, God has given us the capability and the chance to live in and to rebuild. B'hatzlacha.